There is a single frame near the end of the footage that I've looked at more times than any man should look at anything. In it, two antlers are rising out of the brush at the edge of the creek bottom. Heavy, dark, a mature whitetail rack. Exactly what Cole had been rattling for all morning. They're at the right height. They're swaying the right way. The slow side to side of a buck working a scrape. And then you advance one frame, and the brush opens just enough, and you can see that the antlers are not on a deer. They're being held, carried up at head height by something standing upright behind them, walking them toward the camera the way you'd carry a lantern out in front of you in the dark. My name is Reese Halverson. I edit hunting footage for a living. I've cut 1,000 hours of trail cam and chest cam video. I know what a deer looks like through a lens better than most people know their own faces. I was 400 yards from Cole that morning, recording my own audio. When the two files got synced, weeks later, I understood what we'd actually called in. Let me tell it in order. Cole Bressett was my best friend for 19 years, and the best rattler I ever hunted with. If you don't hunt whitetails in the rut, here's all you need to know. In late October and November, the bucks are fighting over does, and you can fake a fight. You take a pair of antlers, real or synthetic, and you crash them together and grind them, and a dominant buck within earshot may come looking to throw the intruder out. It's called rattling. It works when nothing else does, and it is the single most exciting thing in the deer woods. Because you are not calling an animal closer, you are making it angry enough to hunt you back. Cole and I had a system. We'd split up 400 or 500 yards apart, and one of us would rattle while the other sat silent and watched the lanes between us. Because a smart old buck doesn't charge in, he circles. He comes to the downwind side to scent check the fight before he commits. So you put a second hunter where that buck is likely to sneak, and you double your odds. That morning, November 9th, Cole took the creek bottom, the low, thick stuff where the rubs were heaviest. I took the bench above it, 400 yards north and 100 feet up, where I could glass the whole drainage. We both ran chest-mounted cameras. I cut our season into a little film every year, just for us. And I had a separate audio recorder clipped to my pack, because chest cam audio is garbage, and I like to lay clean sound under the footage later. That recorder is the reason I can prove any of this. I want to be clear about Cole. He was 41. He'd killed more mature bucks than anyone I know, and he was careful. He wore orange. He texted his wife his exact pin location. He never took a stupid shot. He was not a man things happened to. He was a man who made things happen, slowly, patiently, the right way. Hold on to that. We split at 6:30. He went down into the creek bottom. I climbed to the bench. The last normal thing I have of him is a text at 6:52. Gonna rattle in 10. Watch my downwind. I watched his downwind for the rest of my life. At 7:05, I heard Cole rattle. Even 400 yards off, across a drainage, you know your partner's sequence. Cole had a rhythm, a hard crash, and then a long grinding. Tick, tick, tick. Very distinctive, very his. He rattled, and I sat still and glassed his downwind, and I waited for a buck to slip the edge. What came instead was a response. Antlers clattering from the timber east of him. I grinned. That's the dream, an instant answer. But then there was a second response from the west of him, almost the same instant, and then the two of them started going back and forth, east, then west, east, then west, like two bucks answering Cole and then answering each other. That happens, by the way. Two bucks will both respond to rattling. I told myself that's all it was. Big drainage, lots of deer, ruts on, of course 2 bucks fired up. But here is what the synced files showed later, when I laid my clean audio under Cole's chest cam timeline and lined them up to the frame. The 2 responses weren't 2 bucks reacting to Cole. They were answering each other in perfect call and response. East rattles. Exactly 1.5 seconds later, west rattles. Exactly 1.5 seconds later, east again. Metronomic, to the 10th of a second, for 2 full minutes. No deer is a metronome. 2 deer fighting over the same ground do not take polite turns spaced to the 10th of a second. And in all that time, on neither audio track, in neither direction, is there a single footstep. No leaves, no brush. The rattling moved. It got closer, both sides at once, but nothing walked to move it. So let me stop and ask you, because Cole had a decision to make right here, and so might you someday. You're in a creek bottom, alone, and you rattle, and 2 sets of antlers start answering you from 2 sides, and they start closing in, and you slowly realize that whatever's moving them isn't making any sound on the ground at all. Do you keep rattling because a once-in-a-lifetime buck might be 20 yards out? Or do you shut up and get small and pray it loses interest? Tell me what you do in the comments. Cole kept rattling. I think he kept rattling because, like me, he still believed it was deer. He believed that almost all the way to the end. Here's where I have to tell you about the 3rd set of rattling, because that's the thing that ended any explanation I had left. On Cole's chest cam, at 7:14, the 2 converging responses, east and west, are close now, maybe 40 yards, 1 on each side of him in the thick brush. And you can see the brush moving. Both sides, tops of the brush swaying, parting, at a height of about 5 feet. Shoulder height on a man, way too high for a deer's body pushing through. The footage shows the brush move at 5 feet and stay perfectly still below it. Nothing parting at knee level. Nothing at all where legs would be. And I know what you're asking, because I was 100 feet up with good glass on exactly that stretch of bottom. What did I see? Nothing. That's the part I've had to make peace with. My own chest cam ran the whole time, and I've laid it next to his, synced to the frame. His lens shows the brush tops parting at 5 feet, 40 yards out, both sides. Mine, looking down at the same brush in the same seconds, shows it dead still. Not one stem. I've stopped trying to make those 2 pieces of footage agree, and I don't think I'm supposed to. I don't think the man on the bench was ever meant to see it coming. And then, on my audio track, the clean recorder, 400 yards north, there is a 3rd rattling sequence. It is between them, spatially between the east and the west, which means it is right on top of Cole, right where the camera is, inches from the microphone on his chest. And it is not the same as the other 2. The east and west were just antler clatter. This 3rd one had Cole's rhythm, the hard crash, the long grinding tick, tick, tick. My partner's exact sequence, the one I'd know in my sleep, except Cole's hands are in the frame the whole time. His antlers are slung on his pack. He is not rattling. Something 18 inches from his chest is rattling in Cole's own style, in Cole's own rhythm, and it had to have learned it that morning, from listening to him, because he'd only invented that particular tick, tick, at the end of the previous season. I synced those files 3 times, because I didn't believe them. It learned his cadence in under 10 minutes, and played it back from the one place he couldn't see, directly in front of him, where a man stares while everything sneaks up from the sides. That was the explanation I carried for weeks. That it was fast. That it learned him in 10 minutes. The truth was worse, and I'll get there. I lost him in about a minute, and I'm going to give it to you the way it happened because there's no body and no scream, and that's somehow worse. At 7:16, Cole's chest cam shows the antlers, the third set, the close one, rise straight up out of the brush in front of him. Heavy rack, swaying. He makes a small sound, the sound a man makes when the buck of his life finally steps out, a tight little intake of breath, and the camera lurches up as he starts to stand for the shot, and the frame opens. And that's the frame I told you about. The antlers, at head height, held, and one frame later the brush shifts, and you can see they're being carried, upright, by something tall standing behind them. Then the audio on Cole's camera does the only loud thing in the whole recording. Not a scream, just the rattle. His exact sequence, the tick, 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 played once, very fast, very close, and Cole's voice underneath it saying, quiet, almost wondering, that's not... And the camera goes to brush and sky and ground, tumbling, and then it's lying in the leaves looking up at nothing, and it records the empty creek bottom for 19 more minutes until the battery quits. No footsteps leaving. Cole's antlers were still slung on his pack, which was found sitting upright against a log, like it had been set down. He was not in it. I called him at 7:22 from the bench. I heard his phone ring, down in the bottom, 400 yards away, ringing and ringing in a place with no one to answer it. I have not been able to listen to a phone ring the same way since. The sheriff's office worked it hard, I'll give him that. Cole's case file says, missing person, presumed lost, terrain hazard not excluded. They watched the chest cam footage. The detective told me, gently, that the camera had clearly fallen and the imagery was inconclusive due to vegetation. That's the official version of the frame I showed you. Vegetation. They couldn't say what wasn't a deer, so they said nothing, and nothing went in the file as no determination. I'm the one who synced the audio. I'm the one who has the third rattle. I gave them a copy. It's in the file, and it has done exactly nothing. Because what's it gonna do? Here's the last thing, and then I'll let you go. I slowed that third rattling sequence all the way down, the close one, the one in Cole's rhythm, stretched it out, frame by frame, to hear what it was actually made of. And it isn't antlers. There's no bone on bone in it, no click of tine. It's a voice, something doing the sound of rattling with its throat, the crash, the grind, the tick, tick, tick. And slowed down that far, the tick has a flaw in it, a half-beat stumble on the third tick. That stumble is mine. I broke my left wrist when I was 19, and it hangs up when I twist it, and it puts a little hitch in my grind that I have never once been able to iron out. Cole ribbed me about it for years. Cole's rattling was clean. I have 19 seasons of them on my hard drives, and that hitch is not in one frame of it. It's in the Things version. The rattle that rose up 18 inches from my best friend's chest was Cole's sequence, played with my mistake in it. It didn't learn Cole's rattle that morning. It already knew mine. Somewhere back down the seasons, it had stood off in the thick stuff and listened to me long enough to learn the one thing about my hands I can't change, and I never touched my antlers that morning. It walked into that bottom already carrying my sound. It wasn't answering Cole. It was calling for me. Cole just stood up first. I don't rattle anymore. Not during the rut. Not ever. Because the one time I tried, a year later, on different ground, 2 counties away, I crashed the antlers once. Just once. And somewhere off in the thick stuff, at shoulder height, something answered with my own hitch in the rhythm. And I packed up and I left, and I have not put antlers in my hands since. They never found Cole. His pack is in an evidence room. His wife still has his phone, and his rattling antlers came back to me, and I keep them in the garage with a towel over them, which is a stupid thing to do, and I do it anyway. These are original stories written for this channel. If you've ever called something in, rattled, bugled, blew a predator call, and gotten an answer that knew you a little too well, that came back in your own voice, your own rhythm, from the one direction you weren't watching, the submission form is in the description. The next case file is already open.